Gene Hackman, the immortal icon of Hollywood, passed away in silence, without a final word. No suspects, no blood-soaked scene, and no signs of foul play. Every clue disappeared into the desert. Betsy Arakawa, the only woman who knew the truth, followed her husband. Was it a coincidence or something more sinister? The secrets remain. Every breath, every footprint Hackman left in the sand has now turned to ashes, consumed by rumors, subtle poisons, invisible assassins, or the dark hands of secret meetings behind the Oscar stage. All of Hollywood holds its breath, the truth slowly bleeding beneath the New Mexico desert. Hackman's departure was not just a funeral, but the opening chapter of the darkest history even Hollywood feared to mention. Los Terros, a small village in the heart of the New Mexico desert, had long been known as a refuge for those seeking to escape the spotlight. For Gene Hackman, a living legend who had twice stepped onto the Oscar stage, this was the final stop on his long journey. A man weary of camera flashes and curious stares. He and his wife, Betsy Arakawa, chose this corner of the desert to make it their sanctuary, a place where no Hollywood footprint could ever intrude. Let us know which movie you first heard of Gene Hackman from. If you're curious about the unsolved stories surrounding this actor, don't forget to hit like, share, and leave a comment below to share your thoughts with us. Now let's dive into some fascinating stories about the late actor Gene Hackman. Since the 2010s, Gene Hackman had nearly disappeared from major newspapers, refusing interviews, turning down new projects, and spending all his time with Betsy, the quiet woman who had stood by him since they married. Their two-story wooden house, with windows overlooking the endless barren grasslands, had become an impregnable fortress. No guards, no surveillance cameras, no hidden fences. The only barrier between their world and the outside was the absolute silence. A silence so powerful it swallowed any rumors about them. The locals of Los Terros rarely saw Gene Hackman. On the rare occasions he walked into the local shop, he would simply nod politely and quietly leave. Betsy was the same. They lived like two shadows gliding through each other's lives gently and without a sound. But this perfect tranquility turned into an endless void when authorities discovered that both had passed away inside the very house that had sheltered them from the outside world. There were no signs of forced entry, no doors or windows damaged, no signs of struggle or resistance. Gene Hackman's body was found in his familiar wooden chair near the living room window, where he often sat to read. Betsy lay a few steps away, her head resting on the armrest, as if she had just dozed off on their small dog, a loyal companion lying quietly at their feet, as if everything was just a peaceful afternoon that had lasted longer than expected. The air inside the house had no strange odors. The furniture was intact, with no signs of disruption, as if the house had been covered by an absolute silence, freezing time at the final moment. What puzzled the investigators was the chilling naturalness of the scene. No traces, no external impact, nothing. Only Gene, Betsy, and their small dog, silent like the life they had chosen. The Santa Fe police called it an inexplicable scene. The initial theories of a break-in or accident were quickly dismissed. No external forces had affected Gene or Betsy's bodies. They left in silence, as if the silence of Los Terros had gently carried them away without warning. But this silence had never been so terrifying, because behind that absolute peace lay a mystery waiting to be unraveled. And as the first rumors spread across Santa Fe, the once silent loser, Rios, no longer stayed quiet. The news of Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa being found inside their small wooden house in Los Terros didn't take long to escape the boundaries of the dry desert from Santa Fe. The first rumors began to drift across the desert, the winds blowing towards roadside cafes, old newsstands, and weekend markets, where locals often welcomed stories. But this time, the name whispered wasn't that of an unknown person, but Gene Hackman, the star who had once stunned all of Hollywood. No one knows exactly where the first rumors began, perhaps from a coroner leaving the scene or from a neighbor who happened to see the police lights through a window. But once the first words were spoken, they carried the power of the silent desert, unstoppable. Amidst the barren landscape and the cold winds of New Mexico, 3 theories were put forward: murder, break-in, or gas leak accident. For those who had lived long enough in Santa Fe or Los Celos, the concept of a deadly, mysterious desert was nothing new. Since the 1970s, New Mexico had become a land linked to unexplained disappearances, abandoned homes where the owners suddenly vanished, bodies found with no wounds, but their eyes still filled with terror. This barren land, by its very nature, held stories no one wanted to remember. So, when the name Gene Hackman emerged in that context, rumors quickly began to shift. Amidst the media storm, rumors began to spread that Gene Hackman had been murdered in his own home. The first headline appeared on a small blog, but quickly spread as major newspapers like TMZ and even the New York Times got involved. Who could believe that, at over 90 years old, Gene Hackman would become the center of such a truth-seeking hunt? Santa Fe was no stranger to the media, but the presence of reporters this time brought a completely different feeling. No longer were there articles about local restaurants or picturesque scenery, but news reports tinged with mystery. Gene Hackman, Betsy Arakawa, and their beloved dog. 3 lives left behind in a house with no signs of forced entry, no signs of violence, no cries for help. The Santa Fe police were forced to hold their first press conference later that afternoon, amidst the continuous flashes of cameras. The police spokesperson stood behind the wooden podium, his voice calm but firm. No signs of forced entry. No obvious injuries. No external trauma. The brief statement cut through all the theories like a knife. But it was that very decisiveness that made people more suspicious. If no one had broken in, then how could it be that no one harmed them? Gene and Betsy, 2 healthy individuals living peacefully in that quiet space, suddenly died by accident? Rumors spread. Some spoke of an invisible intruder, one who silently infiltrates homes in the desert without leaving a trace. Others mentioned ancient curses tied to the land of Los Terros, once a focal point for rituals that no one dared name. Then, the theory of a gas leak quietly killing each person in silence became the most plausible explanation so far, regardless of which theory was believed. No one can deny that Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa, 2 people who spent their lives avoiding the noise and rumors of society, inadvertently became the center of an unstoppable storm of gossip in the endless desert of New Mexico. The whispers continue to echo as if someone or something has never truly left. As the initial theories of a break-in or murder faded, the most plausible explanation that was mentioned was poisoning, specifically carbon monoxide. The invisible killer had taken the lives of many residents in remote areas, much like Los Terros. It was the explanation everyone nodded to before a silent leak invaded every room, drowning Gene Hackman, Betsy Arakawa, and their small dog in eternal sleep, with no cries for help, no signs of struggle or panic. The Santa Fe Police Department's investigation team and environmental experts were urgently called in. The most advanced gas detection equipment was brought into Gene Hackman's small wooden house, scanning every corner, from the heating system and gas stove to the hot water pipes. They inspected everything carefully. Backup generators are a common cause of carbon monoxide poisoning in remote rural areas, but strangely, everything appeared nearly perfect. The gas stove, the main suspect, had only a tiny leak in the gas supply pipe connection. However, the amount of gas released was insignificant, certainly not enough to pose a danger or accumulate in the open space of Hackman's cozy kitchen. The heating system was also thoroughly checked. Every pipe was inspected with thermal cameras to detect any cracks that might allow toxic gas into the house. The results showed nothing unusual. All equipment adhered to installation standards and regular inspections. Minor faults in the hot water pipe and gas connections were entirely unrelated to the risk of carbon monoxide. The real shock came late in the afternoon when the preliminary autopsy report was sent to the chief investigator's office. No traces of carbon monoxide were found in the bodies of Gene Hackman or Betsy Arakawa. Blood samples, lung fluids, brain tissue, everything was clean with no signs of gas poisoning. The most reliable theory, the explanation everyone had clung to, suddenly collapsed. That very evening, a press release from the New Mexico authorities was issued, stating that no carbon monoxide was detected and no environmental toxins were found at levels dangerous to human health. This news sparked the simmering speculations on social media. If it wasn't gas, then what really happened inside that small house in the desert? New theories quickly emerged. Could they have been poisoned by another, more potent toxin? One so sophisticated it bypassed standard tests? Or was it a slow process? A poison slowly absorbed through food or drink, causing both of them to disappear at once, like a curse that had been destined. Some even mentioned biological or chemical agents used in high-level assassinations, capable of self-destruction. After completing their task, they leave the scene clean, like a blank sheet of paper. From Los Terros, where the sunset paints the distant Rocky Mountains, people read conspiracy theory blogs, constantly asking if it wasn't carbon monoxide, then what was it? And that question became like a new curse haunting the public. In the following days, as more theories grew increasingly bizarre and the truth remained buried somewhere in the silent desert winds. Gene Hackman is a name that needs no introduction. He was not just an actor, but a living legend, a symbol of Hollywood's artistic richness, where true talent could surpass flashy gimmicks. From The French Connection to Unforgiven, each of Hackman's roles is etched into the public consciousness. But behind the glamour of his Oscar-winning career lies a web of heavy secrets that few dare to touch. In the 70s and 80s, when Hackman stood at the peak of his fame, he was also a witness to Hollywood's dark corners that the media never mentioned. It was a time of secret parties, backdoor deals, and untold secrets. Rumors circulated that Hackman, with his sharp intelligence and keen eye, missed no details. He knew too much about bribery, backstage favors, and even mysterious disappearances that were never made public. When the news of Hackman and Betsy Arakawa's sudden departure flooded the headlines, some of his former colleagues were contacted to share their feelings. However, instead of offering condolences or reminiscing, most chose silence. Those who had stood by Hackman in iconic projects, directors who regarded him as a golden collaborator, all declined to comment on the matter. The collective silence sent a chill through the public. From this, a new theory emerged. Hackman hadn't just fled from Hollywood's spotlight when he chose to live in seclusion in New Mexico, but did the secrets he held become a burden, forcing him to leave the film capital before the old shadows found him? Some conspiracy websites even mentioned the Hollywood curse, a secret list of stars who knew too much and died under mysterious circumstances. Hackman, with all he had witnessed, may have been the latest victim of that curse, as the secrets of the past remained unsolved and old underground forces continued to quietly exist. Gene Hackman's departure became a mysterious link between the dazzling light and the dark power, where the truth always lurked behind the velvet curtain of the film capital. If Gene Hackman was the embodiment of the light and dark of Hollywood, Betsy Arakawa was the complete opposite of him. Since becoming Gene's partner, Betsy chose to step away from the limelight, living quietly in friendship like a shadow. But the farther she withdrew, the more that shadow became mysterious. Betsy Arakawa had once been a talented piano artist, but since marrying Hackman, she almost disappeared from the public eye. Old friends only remembered her as a gentle, reserved woman who always smiled softly when talking about her legendary husband. But behind those smiles was a sense of unease that only a few close friends truly felt. Several months before they were discovered in their home, Betsy confided in an old friend over the phone that she felt someone was watching her. Strange noises at night, mysterious messages from unknown senders, and an unshakable, baseless anxiety had haunted her daily life. But when advised to call the police, Betsy simply smiled weakly and said, "I'm just being silly. If you're surprised by the unsolved story of Gene Hackman, leave a comment with the number 1. If not, leave a comment with the number 0. Now, let's continue with this mysterious story." Even stranger, just hours after the news of the incident broke, an anonymous call was made to the Santa Fe Police Department. A middle-aged woman's voice, soft and trembling, left only one piece of information. Betsy wrote a letter to a friend in California. It was her final confession, but that letter was never found. From here, speculations arose. Some people suggested that Betsy had been involved in a complex financial relationship before marrying Hackman, and that she had tried to conceal that past for 3 decades. There were also rumors of a secret connection between Betsy and some powerful figures, possibly the real reason behind her unfounded fear. Betsy Arakawa, the woman behind the spotlight of Gene Hackman, might be the final key to unlocking all the mysteries. But now, she has entered the realm of silence, taking her secrets with her into the night of the New Mexico desert, where every confession is buried beneath the sands of time. On the day Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa's bodies were found, the New Mexico desert seemed to hold its breath, not because of the extreme heat or the sandstorms sweeping across the trails, but because of an indescribable feeling that permeated the atmosphere. A legend had died here, but what he left behind wasn't just a legacy of glory. It was a mystery as vast as the endless horizon of the desert. When the initial forensic reports were released, everything became more baffling. No signs of external force, no visible injuries, and no evidence of a break-in at Hackman's home. Carbon monoxide or any usual toxins were ruled out. Every clue that seemed to point toward the truth vanished like a desert mirage in New Mexico. After weeks of investigation, the Santa Fe police had to admit that they couldn't find a specific cause for the deaths of Gene Hackman and his wife. The case remained unsolved, but it seemed even law enforcement had accepted that some mysteries lie beyond the reach of science or ordinary logic. The Hackman family chose silence. They refused all interview requests and declined every offer for cooperation from the press. Those close to Gene Hackman in the past, from former colleagues to neighbors in New Mexico, also maintained a collective silence. Hollywood, which once celebrated him as a living legend, now seemed to deliberately omit Gene Hackman's name from memorial broadcasts. His death had somehow become a strange taboo. In that void, social media exploded, with bizarre theories and conspiracy theories growing more numerous every day. Some claimed that Gene and Betsy were the victims of a perfectly staged assassination, a flawlessly staged suicide. Others believed they had been slowly poisoned over months with a powerful chemical designed to destroy. After completing its task, some forums even delved deeper, suggesting that the incident was connected to secret organizations that had controlled Hollywood for decades. These forces believed that Gene Hackman had inadvertently or purposefully encountered scattered pieces of Betsy's silent fear, strange anonymous calls, and the eerie silence of those who knew Hackman. All these elements intertwined, creating an incomplete yet haunting picture. The death of Gene Hackman wasn't just the passing of a star, but the beginning of a new dark legend, an unsolved mystery where the light of Hollywood glory fades in the dust of New Mexico, leaving millions of questions hanging in the desert sky, holding its breath, waiting for answers. No one really remembers the exact moment when Gene Hackman's house became part of the mysterious legend of Los Terros, but since the day his and Betsy Arakawa's bodies were found, the space was suddenly swallowed by an unusual silence. A silence that wasn't just the absence of people, but the feeling of a place holding its breath, waiting for something too grand, too terrifying, and then never hearing the answer. Neighbors scattered around this harsh desert region began whispering to each other about what they had seen in the last days, before everything came to light. An elderly couple, living nearly a mile from the Hackman home, claimed they had seen strange blue lights flickering through the second-floor window. At first, they thought it was just car headlights from the back trail. But the light didn't move, didn't change. It stayed still, as if illuminating a silent ritual that lasted nearly 10 minutes before abruptly going out. A horse rancher, who occasionally delivered hay to the Hackman home, recalled that a few days before the police arrived, he saw Betsy standing on the porch, her eyes staring blankly at the distant desert with an unusually vacant expression. She didn't wave or respond to his greeting. She just stood there, as if listening to a sound that no one else could hear. After their initial official statements, the Santa Fe police also quietly withdrew from the case. No further updates were provided, no more press releases were issued. Once the case was temporarily closed, this only made the silence even more terrifying. The Hackman family refused all contact, and those close to Gene Hackman throughout his life suddenly fell silent, as if they had received an invisible warning. On online forums, from Reddit to conspiracy blogs about Hollywood, Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa were no longer just the reclusive couple of Los Chelos. They had become a new symbol of a dark Hollywood, where the stage lights never shine. Theories about the price of knowing too many secrets were hidden away. Hackman's life, shrouded in a fog of mystery, where his roles, Oscar statues, and past awards are now just a thin mask hiding a deeper secret. Beneath the house of Gene Hackman still stands uninhabited. No one dares enter, not to sell, not to rent, and no one dares destroy it, as if it has become part of the legend itself. Every night when the desert wind howls through the empty windows, whispers about untold secrets echo from somewhere far away. And Gene Hackman, though he has left this life, his story of standing too close to the truth will continue to haunt New Mexico. The darkness beneath the veneer of silence and the dry official statements from Santa Fe police still left broken pieces that would never fit together. A mysterious call at 2:37 a.m., about 48 hours before the discovery of Hackman and Betsy's bodies. The emergency hotline received an interrupted call from Hackman's landline. A woman's voice whispered only 5 words. They found out too late. The call abruptly ended. The police later confirmed that Betsy had made the call, but they couldn't explain why the call wasn't continued or who she was speaking to. In that statement, the empty safe in Hackman's office was mentioned. There was a large safe that hadn't appeared in any previous asset inventories. The door was wide open, and inside it was completely empty. No one knew what Hackman had kept in there, and there was no sign of a break-in. An unfinished manuscript, a handwritten draft with scattered pages, was found in the basement, a place Hackman rarely visited. The content of the manuscript included fragmented memories of Hollywood in the 70s and 80s, interspersed with shady names, a club, desert meetings, and a red folder. It seemed Hackman had written this secret memoir for himself, or for someone brave enough to read the rest. The manuscript abruptly ended with the line, "If they find out, no one will survive." The death of Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa didn't just mark the end of 2 lives, but also opened a new chapter in Hollywood's dark legend. After the incident, many conspiracy forums believed that Hackman had unknowingly stepped into a secret society of filmmakers, moguls, and politicians in the post-Watergate era. He had escaped, but carried with him secrets that would never be made public, spreading fear. At least 3 of Hackman's longtime friends, including a director who had worked with him on Mississippi Burning, quietly left Los Angeles after the police closed the case. None of them agreed to be interviewed, even when offered 6-figure sums. The haunted house remains to this day. Those who have visited Hackman's old neighborhood claim to have heard whispers at dawn, the voice of Betsy or Hackman himself echoing from the desert, disjointed phrases that are incomprehensible, but always repeating one phrase: "It's not safe here." Gene Hackman's legacy isn't just his Oscar statues or iconic roles, but the shadow he casts over Hollywood, where the truth is buried beneath the sands of New Mexico, a place where not everyone who knows too much can survive to tell the story. Gene Hackman passed away in silence, but the aftershocks of the incident spread like a sandstorm, engulfing Hollywood. Betsy Arakawa, the final witness, also followed, leaving behind a cold message: "Those who know too much have no way out. It wasn't an accident, it wasn't a suicide. This is the price of the truth, where the stage lights never shine." Let us know what you think about the mysteries surrounding his life. And don't forget to hit like, share, and leave your thoughts in the comments below the video. See you in the next one.